The 1970s were full of daring innovations, but not every motorcycle lived up to the hype. Join us as we take a ride through the 15 worst bikes from that era, the ones that left riders frustrated and mechanics scratching their heads. Subscribe to Vintage Cars for more marvelous motorcycle history content. Number 15. 1972 Kawasaki H2 Mach 4. Let's start with a bike that almost everyone, including Kawasaki, wishes had stayed on paper. The 1972 Kawasaki H2 Mach 4. Kawasaki took their legendary H1 Mach 3 and cranked it up to 11 with a 750cc two-stroke engine. This beast put out a staggering 74 horsepower, which might sound impressive, but the engineering was, well, a bit sketchy. The H2 Mach 4 had a frame that was about as sturdy as wet spaghetti, and the front forks? Let's just say they could barely support the weight of the bike, let alone keep it steady at high speeds. And high speeds it could reach 125 miles per hour. But here's the kicker. Above 3,500 RPM, it was like the bike had a mind of its own, sending riders into unexpected wheelies. Add in the horrific handling, unreliable brakes, and a dangerous rear weight bias, and you get a motorcycle that even professional riders were afraid to touch. It was discontinued by 1975, and for good reason. Who wants to risk their life for a thrill ride that's more oops than whoa? Number 14. 1971 Suzuki TM 400 Cyclone. Next up, we've got the 1971 Suzuki TM 400 Cyclone, Suzuki's answer to motocross dominance. But let's be real, it was more of a nightmare than a cyclone. Suzuki's ambitious attempt at building a top-tier race bike was riddled with issues, especially with power delivery. Imagine having a bike that's supposed to be fast, but the power would hit you like a light switch, full on or full off. And the ignition system? Let's just say it was more guess when it'll work than reliable. The handling was horrendous too. The chassis was so badly designed that it flexed under load, which caused all sorts of wild behaviors, like the bike trying to toss you off at every turn. By the time Suzuki managed to improve things in the mid-70s, the TM400 was already infamous for being a complete handful, and its reputation never recovered. Number 13. 1974 Suzuki RE5. Suzuki really went out on a limb with the 1974 RE5, and honestly, it didn't pay off. This bike had a Wankel rotary engine, which was a cool concept at the time, but it quickly became apparent that the technology was ahead of its time, and not in a good way. The engine, while innovative, lacked the durability of its piston counterparts, and its reliability was a nightmare once the warranty expired. If one of the seals in the rotary engine failed, which happened frequently, the whole thing would need to be replaced. Not exactly a budget-friendly bike, right? By 1976, interest in the RE5 plummeted as repair costs soared and the novelty wore off. Riders just weren't ready to embrace the rotary engine for everyday use. The RE5 might have looked futuristic, but it was a mechanical nightmare that most riders would rather forget. Number 12. 1975 Honda CB 500T. Now let's talk about the 1975 Honda CB 500T, a motorcycle so unrefined that even Honda might not want to remember it. After the success of the CB 450T, Honda decided to bump up the engine size to 500cc. But instead of creating a new, smoother engine, they simply modified the existing 450cc engine, and it was a disaster. The result? a bike that vibrated like crazy, making every ride feel like you were sitting on a jackhammer. The vibrations were so bad that they could actually make your fillings rattle loose. Not exactly the most comfortable ride for long distances. Honda's decision to cut corners with the engine design left the CB500T a tough pill to swallow for anyone expecting a smooth ride or decent performance. Number 11. 1973 Yamaha SC 500 Yamahas. (1973) SC 500 was an ambitious attempt to join the ranks of powerful motocross bikes, but it ended up falling flat. The bike was supposed to compete with the big boys in the open class, but instead, it found itself struggling with poor throttle response, engine sputtering, and a suspension system that failed miserably after just a few rides. The bike had serious power delivery issues, with an erratic burst of power that made it feel unpredictable. The chassis was poorly balanced, causing the bike to behave like a bucking bronco when riding fast. And when the suspension couldn't handle it, the bike became a rough ride that left riders with a sore body and an even worse opinion of Yamaha's effort. By the time Yamaha released the YZ360 in 1974, the SC 500 had earned a reputation as one of the most poorly executed motorcycles in its class. Number 10. 1976 Honda CB 750A Honda Matic Hondas. Attempt to introduce an automatic transmission with the 1976 Honda CB 750A, also known as the Honda Matic, was a noble effort that ultimately went south. While the idea of an automatic motorcycle sounds appealing to some, the implementation was a mess. The Matic system was a 2-speed automatic gearbox that didn't offer much in the way of performance or excitement. Riders quickly realized that the bike was sluggish and cumbersome compared to its manual counterparts. Although it had a solid engine and decent features, the Matic transmission just didn't resonate with the crowd that Honda was aiming for. Enthusiasts of the time preferred the manual control that traditional motorcycles offered, and the CB 750A failed to meet the expectations of both performance and innovation. It didn't take long for Honda to pull the plug on this one. Number 9. 1973 Yamaha TX750. If you're a fan of Yamaha's bikes, then you probably don't want to hear about the TX750. Yamaha's entry into the 750cc road sport market was an ambitious one, but it quickly became known for its dreadful reliability issues. The engine, despite boasting an innovative design with balancers to reduce vibration, had a tendency to overheat and consume oil at an alarming rate. These issues meant the TX750 often found itself on the back of a tow truck rather than the open road. Despite its sleek appearance and technological advances like disc brakes and aluminum trims, the TX750's unreliable nature made it a failure in the market. Yamaha tried to fix the issues, but by 1975, they had already pulled it from production, leaving the TX750 to be remembered as a major misstep in Yamaha's history. Number 8. 1974 Ducati 860. GT Ducati's 1974 860 GT had all the ingredients for a great bike, but it just didn't work out. The new angular styling might have looked modern for its time, but it was polarizing among Ducati fans who were more accustomed to the brand's classic rounded lines. On top of that, the 860 GT had some serious handling problems. Despite its V-twin engine and desmodromic valve system, which had potential, the bike was just too stiff and uncomfortable for most riders. The 860 GT's performance wasn't stellar either. While it could get up and go, it didn't deliver the smooth, sporty ride that Ducati was known for. These combined issues meant that the 860 GT didn't fare well in the market, and Ducati quickly moved to redesign it in 1975. Number 7. 1971. Sport Moto Guzzi's V7 Sport. Sport Moto Guzzi's V7 Sport was a bike that looked the part, but didn't quite deliver on the performance side. It featured clip-on handlebars for a sportier, more aggressive riding position, but the bike was plagued by maintenance and reliability issues that made it a frustrating experience for owners. Despite the 748 cubic centimeter engine's potential, the V7 Sport's transversely mounted engine design made servicing a nightmare for mechanics and owners alike. The bike also suffered from inconsistent build quality, and by the time the 1974 models came out, Moto Guzzi had already begun to rethink the V7 Sport's place in their lineup. It had the potential to be a standout, but the execution was far from perfect. Number 6. 1972. Kawasaki Z1900. The Kawasaki Z1900, a powerhouse that promised so much but delivered not quite enough. This bike boasted a groundbreaking double overhead camshaft system and had some impressive styling, but the frame was flexible under load, which made aggressive riding a dangerous game. The handling was compromised, and riders found themselves fighting with the bike instead of enjoying it. Kawasaki tried to make up for these flaws with solid features, like an electric starter and disc brakes, but these couldn't make up for the handling and performance problems. The Z1900 was a major disappointment for many riders looking for a reliable performance motorcycle. Number 5. 1973. Laverda 1000. The Laverda 1000, with its 981 cubic centimeter triple engine, promised to be a heavyweight contender in the sport bike category, but it didn't quite live up to expectations. Riders were frustrated by its sluggish handling and the rough ride quality that made longer trips a pain. It was heavy and lacked the finesse of its competitors, making it a tough bike to handle at higher speeds. Laverda's attempt to combine power and innovation with the 1000 was admirable, but the bike just didn't have the agility or comfort needed to compete with its lighter, more refined counterparts. It was a bike that couldn't decide if it was a powerhouse or a cruiser, and it ultimately suffered in both areas. Number 4. 1975 Triumph Trident T160. The Triumph Trident T160 was a 3-cylinder bike that was supposed to bring the British motorcycle company back into the limelight. While it had the potential, it was plagued by mechanical problems, oil leaks, and issues with the mufflers that caused back pressure issues. These flaws led to poor performance and a reputation as an unreliable bike. Despite being powered by a 750cc engine that produced decent power, the T160 was considered a disappointment in terms of build quality and overall performance. It could have been a great bike, but its reliability and performance issues made it one of the most frustrating motorcycles to own in the 1970s. Number 3. 1979. Mako 490. The Mako 490 was an attempt to enter the motocross market with a bang, but instead, it left riders banging their heads against the wall. Despite its strong engine and high horsepower, the 490 was a nightmare when it came to handling. Riders struggled to keep control, particularly in corners, and the bike's frequent mechanical failures made it a challenging bike to maintain. The Mako 490's poor handling, reliability issues, and demanding nature meant that it never gained the popularity it hoped for. It was too difficult for most riders to handle, and the frequent breakdowns made it a frustrating bike to own. Number 2. 1971 Harley-Davidson X90. Let's shift gears a bit with the 1971 Harley-Davidson X90. This bike, often dubbed as a mini bike, was an attempt by Harley-Davidson to jump into the growing off-road market for young riders. But the X90 ended up being more of a joke than a competitive bike. Powered by a 90cc engine, the X90 was slow, clunky, and seemed like it was built for someone who just got their driver's license. 20 years too late. The bike's design didn't do it any favors either. With stubby proportions and a top speed of around 50 miles per hour, it looked like a toy rather than a serious off-roader. The frame was flimsy, and the suspension was practically non-existent, leading to a ride that was both uncomfortable and unstable. It might have appealed to a few riders in the 70s, but it was soon overshadowed by more capable and reliable competitors. Harley-Davidson abandoned the X90 just a few years later, and for good reason. Number 1. 1975 Yamaha RD350. At number 1, we've got the 1975 Yamaha RD350, which was supposed to be Yamaha's answer to the growing popularity of high-performance two-stroke motorcycles. Unfortunately, what it became was a terror for both the rider and the mechanic. The RD350 was loud, obnoxious, and had an engine that was about as reliable as a leaky faucet. Despite its 347 cubic centimeter twin-cylinder engine producing 39 horsepower and a top speed of 105 miles per hour, the RD350 was a pain to handle. The two-stroke engine delivered power in sudden bursts, making it hard to control, especially when cornering. The bike was prone to excessive vibration, and the handling was downright dangerous at high speeds. Riders often complained of the RD350's temperamental nature, which made it more hassle than thrill. Though it had a cult following in some circles, the Yamaha RD350 earned its place as one of the most frustrating and least loved bikes of the 1970s. The 1970s may have brought about some of the most memorable motorcycles in history, but these 15 bikes are a reminder of the mistakes that were made. Whether it was bad engineering, reliability issues, or simply poor design choices, these bikes missed the mark. Which one of these failures surprised you the most? Would you dare to give any of them a ride today, or are you happy to leave them in the past? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Vintage Cars for more marvelous motorcycle history content.